All people are created equal. Whoever first said that was either a complete idiot or just wanted to stand out. Our whole life is one of inequality, a world where superiority and talent are predetermined. Is it possible to come to terms with this? Shori says great, 10 points, and that the winning streak continues. Ichino's Haruto, Shori's brother, says that Shori is a freak, but it's okay, next time he'll definitely beat him, and also calls him a damn brother. Shori says they'll continue tomorrow and go to school now. Ikino's Haruto asks what his brother is wearing in that stupid outfit. Haruto Ikinosi calls Shori an idiot. Shori explains that it's a special beloved Haru-kun t-shirt and asks if it's really cute. Ichino's Haruto says it's disgusting and orders them to quickly take off this trash. Shori reports that Ishino's Haruto lost and shouldn't he listen to him anyway? Haruto replies that they didn't agree on that. Shori explains that he's been acting cocky this early in the morning and takes off his jacket, saying there's nothing he can do. Haruto Ichino says there's no point in trying to kill him. He asks if Shori wants to drown. Shori says he's taking a bath with his little brother today. Ichino's Haruto says that he will catch the filth from the other, and Shori suggests that they go to school arm in arm, fall into eternal sleep, and sleep together. Shori asks Haruto why he's not listening to him. Haruto replies that he is listening and refuses, he's an idiot, and let him ask for something normal. Shori invites him to join his basketball club. Ichino's Haruto explains that he asked for something normal and yells that he hates basketball. From the direction of Shiranami School, someone can be heard calling Haruto. Shibata Akihiro tells Ichinose Haruto that he's only been at this school for a week and is constantly late and causing trouble. Haruto replies that if he keeps worrying so much about little things, he'll go bald early. The homeroom teacher says that Ichino's Haruto's behavior will get him into trouble too. Ichino's Haruto asks the boy what he's doing there, to which the boy replies that he was attracted to the boy's pheromones. Haruto Ichinose says he's not cockroach bait. The man explains that Haruto Ichinose should follow his older brother's example. Haruto Ichinose indignantly asks, where is that example? Shibata reports that there are no complaints about his brother, either in his studies or in sports. He's the best in his class in grades and plays basketball at the national level. Reporters even came recently. He is famous inside and outside the school. Haruto Ichino says, haha, when he throws the ball into the basket. The man yells, ouch, when the ball hits him in the face. Ichino's Haruto yells that the ball is crap. Shibata comes up to him and asks what he's doing there, then says that the ball has nothing to do with it, it's the ball that sucks. The man says the vending machine only has cold drinks, and Haruto Ichinose says he'll get some iced tea then. Ichinose Haruto says Shibata carries a designer wallet despite having nothing in his pocket, and that he probably wanted to give it to a woman but she didn't accept it. Shibata indignantly asks how Haruto knows this. The man warns Haruto that it's dangerous to wander alone at night, to which Haruto replies that he doesn't care. Haruto Ichino says that no one would want to be in the same club with such an idiot and asks them not to talk nonsense, and Shibata says that someone already did. Ichinose Haruto says he doesn't care, he just wants to beat his brother. Shibata asks why it's so important to Haruto. Haruto explains that, ever since they were kids, wherever his brother went, everyone kept saying, Shori, Shori, while all he got was name-calling. Ichino's Haruto says he heard everything. The man says the guy wants to beat Shori so everyone will adore him. Haruto says his opponent irritates him and he wants to crush him, but the other man replies, whatever you say. Haruto explains that he doesn't understand his opponent's strengths and believes he'll lose either way. The guy says he sees something. Haruto says he hates basketball. He explains that on the court, everyone's eyes are on only one player, and every time he touches the ball, shouts of Kaya and wow are heard from all sides. Haruto Ichino says Shori is the smallest of them all, but he stands out the most, and the court erupts as if a superhero had appeared. He explains that it's as if something clicks, making defense useless. No matter how many players they throw at him, he'll outsmart them all, and then the sound of his jump is heard. He says that all eyes are fixed on one point, and at first it becomes so quiet you can hear your own breathing, and then a few seconds later it becomes so loud that everything before it seems like a dream. He explains that when Shori stands without a doubt at the center of the world, that's the moment he hates most of all. Haruto Ichino says that Shori is an ordinary genius, not some kind of god, and since he's an ordinary person, he can be caught. The man apologizes and says it's nothing special, maybe he's just like Shori. Haruto Ichino yells at him for laughing, "What's he laughing about, you freak?" And the man laughs. He reads a book, he says that he can achieve a lot. Haruto Ichino says that his brother is coming, and that he went home and orders them to say that he was not here if anyone asks. The guy asks where he came from, and Shori replies that he smelled Haruto. The parent says he smells like sweat after about 3 hours of training and calls it a nightmare. The man asks if both brothers are telepathic. Haruto Ichino says that this time, victory will be his. His brother says he's sorry to say it, but his winning streak will continue to grow. Haruto says he didn't think there would be basketball in gym class, and Shori says it's a great opportunity and that a revolution will happen today. The man asks if he knows what a first-year student does in a second-year class and explains that they should be prepared to beg for help on their knees. The scoreboard reads 10-0 in Shori's favor. The guy says there's too much of a difference in talent. Haruto Ichinose says that. The man explains that Haruto will never defeat Shorikun and shouldn't even try, and urges Haruto to give up already. A guy says Shori is the school's celebrity, and Haruto is the school's laughingstock. Haruto indignantly asks what they said about him. The guy repeats that he's the school's laughingstock. The other guy says that naturally. Haruto Ichino says the phrases impossible and can't win sound like they're fortune tellers. He says that he doesn't really care, and that you can laugh and say whatever you want. Haruto Ichino says to point and laugh behind his back. The man tells Shori to come over and asks if he's considered giving in to Haruto a little. Shori responds with a question. The guy explains that he feels sorry for Haruto because he is trying. Haruto Ichinose explains that Haruto first declared war on him in the summer of 8th grade and has been training every day since. He explains that he once deliberately lost, thinking Harukun would be happy, but Harukun got incredibly angry. Shori says it was at that moment that he realized his feet are covered in dirt and scrapes every day, and he wears out his shoes immediately, and he's devalued all his efforts by giving in. Another man explains that Haruto Ichinos is a simple and straightforward person who meets any obstacle head-on, and Shori says that's no reason for him to be the same. Shori says he'll fight him with all his might. The man says he can't tell if they're getting along well or not. The man says Haruto is waiting for his little brother and says goodbye, wishing him luck. He leaves, saying he'll fight with all his might. A panoramic view of a residential area is shown. Haruto Ichinose is yelling and getting angry, and the man explains that basketball shots are supposed to be lobs and says Haruto sucks as always. The man says he told Haruto to come back earlier because it's dangerous outside. Haruto yells at the man for coming and demands he shut up. He says he was thinking of inviting Haruto out for a snack. The man explains he didn't come to argue and doesn't need insults. He says it's a teacher's job to reward a student who tries hard. Haruto says he needs to practice and will give the other guy a wide berth. Haruto Ichino says it's a shame, because a friend tells him that an acquaintance told him about a delicious yakiniku restaurant he was just planning to go to. The image states that the action takes place in the Nurumisu area. Haruto Ichino says everyone's lined up and asks why. The guy explains that it's probably because of the Chinese food, where everything is 100 yen. Haruto Ichino says that's great and suggests they go there. The guy is surprised by how many people are there and asks what it is. Haruto. He says they were going for yakiniku. The man explains that the brat doesn't understand the value of money and calls him an idiot. Haruto reports that the man himself said he would treat you to yakiniku. The man says you can eat a lot here for cheap, and it's a good deal. Shori climbs out of the bucket and says, "How about taking sushi as a compromise?" Haruto and shouts back. Shori reports that he's tracked them via GPS. Haruto asks how Haruto Ichinos ended up here. Haruto Ichinos demands to call the police. The guy says that since Shori is here, they'll go to the cheapest Chinese restaurant, and he asks if it's yakiniku. He says another time. Haruto explains that his brother must return to the earth, and the boy notices that he still carries an expensive wallet. The man says he's not having a good day, and there's nothing he can do. Haruto Ichinose speaks from behind Shibata. The man asks, "Huh?" and extends his hand. Shibato yells that his wallet has been stolen and asks him to make way. The man says something in surprise, and he explains that he shouldn't have been carrying a branded wallet. Shori says he'll catch up quickly, and Haruto shouts that it is impossible, brother. The guy screams that this is crap. The hooded man says he doesn't understand how he managed to do it. Shori yells at them to stop and tells them not to run to the other side. The guys say how cool Shori is, and that this is even possible. Haruto. He says the idiot is acting alone, and the man asks if he's a ninja. The man says they need to call the police, but he stops him, saying there's no time for that. He says he has a bad feeling about this. Shibato reports to the police that he was attacked by a pickpocket and begins giving his address. Haruto Ichinos asks him to be quiet for a moment. The man asks what he's talking about. The guy asks Haruto what's wrong, and Haruto says he's hungry. The man asks what the line is like now and asks what interesting things Haruto has been up to lately. The guy explains that they say it was a pickpocket. Haruto says, "Damn," and the man yells at Haruto and tries to catch up with him. Shibato is talking to the police on the phone. The police tell Shibato that the pickpocket has a knife on him. He says that if he doesn't make it in time, everything will end. Shores informs him that if he loses sight of the target, he will leave, and that the target is trying to confuse him. Shori says he won't let that happen and explains how confusing the streets are. The pickpocket says he'll have to kill Shori. He screams at her to die. Shori yells that the opponent will die here. The man says that many will be in trouble if he gets hurt. Haruto says not to lose since he's the one who came after him. Haruto. He says that everything is completely wrong. He said so. The man and the boy shout, warning Haruto that there is danger behind. The guy with the knife asks how he stabbed him from behind. Haruto Ichino says he hears everything. Haruto. He says that if you understand, then give up already. The guy tells him to hold his wallet. Haruto Ichino explains that it's neither yakiniku nor Chinese food, and the man says it's a Chinese bun. Haruto asks where his brother is, and the man says he's being questioned. He said to go ahead, they'll be done soon. The man tells Haruto to listen, and Haruto notices there's coffee. The man asks if Haruto knew he had a knife, and says he knew there was something jingling under his clothes. Haruto Ichino says that this time his hearing somehow miraculously came in handy, but hearing the insult spoken in whispers, the footsteps of this idiot, and everything in general got to him. He reports that then, in the park, he realized that Shuairi was coming, and probably also by his steps. Shibato says that if you can understand where people are by sound, he says and asks who brought this creepy yukai here. A guy asks another guy what's wrong with him today and if anything good happened. The guy complains that he hasn't eaten anything. The guy asks where Haruto got it from. Hammer. Haruto, he says he came to smear him. He shouts that the guy wanted to turn his head with sweet words, and the guy replies that he feels awkward. The boy asks what's going on here. The man says children's games should be played outside. Sakusaka Suzu, the basketball team captain, tells them to stop causing chaos during practice. The captain announces that he's the same little brother and immediately says that Haruto Ichinose has no chance against Shori. Haruto Ichinose yells, "What?" in response. Haruto. He says that he will definitely win, but Sakusaka asks him to leave, otherwise they will waste their time. Haruto Ichinose says there's no point in having a duel whose outcome is obvious, and asks if his interlocutor thinks the same. Shibato says he thinks Haruto stronger, and that's enough to make Shori lose. Shori says that after such words, he simply has to play with him. The guy explains that he wasn't asked at all, but also asks if it's possible to play just once. Shibato says they have one condition. He also says that Shori is a good and understanding guy, but there's just one thing. Haruto Ichino says, hey, and then asks what he's talking about. The guy says there's no point in playing properly, 5-on-5. He explains that it will be fun to have a real match for the first time. The man says they'll be bored just watching. The guy says they'll immediately realize it's pointless anyway. The guy says, okay, screw them, and then sighs. The guy with the number 10 announces that the match is starting. The guy with the number 5 warns him to be careful, and the guy with the number 4 explains that his brother has the ball. The guy with the number 5 says that since the sensei is so confident, the guy with the number 4 replies with a question. Haruto Ichinose reveals he has a good reason for this. He explains that he might have something crazy in mind. Then Haruto Ichinose yells, calling someone a damn brother. Two guys are standing next to each other. He kicks the ball sharply and says he's calling the freak here. The second guy reacts with surprise. Haruto Ichinose says he'll take the ball, naturally. Haruto Ichinose yells at them not to take the ball and asks what's going on. The man asks to wait a second. Haruto Ichinose remarks that maybe he's a complete loser. He explains that no, but Shiba-sen's attitude must have a reason, and yet he really is a loser, after which the other man shouts, "Shibata, ah!" The guy says they need to let him get used to teamwork. Haruto Ichinose explains that it's because of the guy that she's a team player. The two guys argue about what a slime is and who's a slime, and one of them asks who said that. Haruto Ichinose said he can. A man says Haruto is losing without a win, and another man explains that he needs to be patient. Haruto asks what they were talking about, and the man explains that Haruto has a chance to beat Shuri in a team game. The man lists Haruto's inferior speed, technique, and sense of balance. Haruto Ichino says ears, but not ears. He asks about ears. The man explains that Haruto understands where someone is by sound, meaning his awareness will be a cut above anyone else's. He explains that talent is simply the correct use of one's abilities, and says that if you listen carefully, you will definitely become the best. The man asks for forgiveness. A girl says she's a little lost and asks for directions. The guy replies that he knows the area like the back of his hand and offers to walk her home. The man yells that it's dangerous to be alone at night and that he'll walk the girl home, while telling the other guy to go home with Shori. Haruto Ichinose calls the man a horny teacher. The guy with the number 10 yells that the game is completely one-sided. The man asks how much longer this will go on. The guy with the number 10 curses. Player 7 throws the ball into the basket, and player 10 runs after him. The woman says that maybe that's enough, the man asks. The woman says that this is some kind of public humiliation and they need to stop immediately. The man says that it's impossible. Haruto Ichinose explains that then they won't be able to see the surprise on their faces. The girl asks why he's so sure of that. Haruto Ichinose replies that he's not the least bit sure. The girl responds with a question. He explains that confidence comes after some successful experience and asks if the other person is confident it will work this time because it worked last time. The man replies that he doesn't have that feeling and that it's just a bluff. The boy and girl say it seems stupid and ask what a bluff is. Haruto Ichinose explains that without a bluff, you can't provoke someone stronger, and entrusting someone else with this bluff means trusting them. The girl says he seems to get along with him very well. The man replies that it's not that he gets along, he just always wants to support such awkward and straightforward eccentrics, as if he's looking at himself from the past. A boy shouts, "Shori," and another boy reacts. Several players are moving on the basketball court, and one of them exclaims, "Hey!" Haruto Ichinose stares ahead tensely. The guy wearing number 4 says he made a mistake with the pass. The guy wearing number 7 is surprised. He rushes onto the court with the ball. The man and girl warn them to be careful. He says he managed to steal the ball and asks what to do now. The man tells Haruto to listen carefully, and then he will definitely become the best. Haruto, surprised, repeats the word, "listen." On the basketball court, Haruto performs a spectacular jump and throws the ball into the basket, shouting with enthusiasm. The players on the court watch. The guy with the number 5 announces that he caught the ball, and the other players are surprised and ask what's going on. Then the guy with the number 5 throws the ball into the basket. The guy says that's it. The man tells them to wait and asks Haruto Ichinose if he's okay. Haruto Ichinose screams ouch and ah as he falls to the floor. The two men look on in surprise. Haruto Ichinose yells, "That's it." A guy asks what that was, and another guy asks if it was a pass. A third guy explains that a pass is impossible because it's right behind him, and there's a blind spot there. A man asks what happens when a bluff turns into a sure thing. He says he's spreading his wings. The man says it's happening again. The man asks what suddenly happened. Haruto Ichino says his brother's team is starting to make a comeback. The man announces the score is 8,012. The man looks ahead. The guy reports that passes are flying past them and asks how that's possible. The man explains that he doesn't know what kind of magic it is, but he knows where each player is. He's talking crap. Haruto Ichinos tells him not to create a breach, while the other man tells him to retreat and strengthen his defenses. He says he's got the ball again and warns everyone to watch out for their little brother. The man with glasses tries to steal the ball from player number 5, and 3 players on defense prepare to take action. The guy with the number 4 says he's just passing through some kind of crack. The guy with the number 5 asks what's going on. Haruto Ichinose says it's Shotoku Taishi. The guy reports that Shotoku Taishi could listen to 10 people at once and explains that he can distinguish the sound of a specific person's footsteps in a crowd of dozens. The girl asks what he has to do with it, and the man asks what happened. The guy reminds them that they were told about this. The boy explains that if Haruto Ichinose is capable of this, then the tiny gem is no problem for him. The man explains that the voices, the sound of basketball shoes, and the bounce of the ball all tell Haruto Ichinose about the situation. The man says that Haruto struggles with tricky throws because of his personality. He always throws the ball straight and with all his strength, which is perfect for passing. The girl says that Haruto practices with the ball every day, so he has no problem with control either. The woman says his hard work and good hearing alone can't make such passes. The man says they've long since transformed him from the lousy player he seems. Haruto Ichinose explains that this is the result of his training. The guy says that even though he forced them to retreat, he only knows how to pass, and then says that's how it is. The man with the ball reacts to this. The guy says he blocked the passing lane by skillfully stepping forward, and the other guy says it's their captain. Haruto Ichinose says the opponent won't be able to get past him one-on-one and won't pass the ball now. He says what's going on, the man screams. He throws the ball into the basket. The guy says Haruto is definitely a real boy. The man explains that he turned his whole body. The second man says, "What kind of boy is this?" Haruto Ichino says that this time victory is his. The guy with short blonde hair says he doesn't believe it, and the guy with short blonde hair on the right explains that he really does. The woman says, Haruto-kun is amazing and can really win, but the man says he's not sure. The man explains he doesn't think Shori will let things end this way. Haruto Ichinose rejoices and says he's as cool as expected of his little brother. He says he always knew he had the strongest one and announces that there's Sekihan for dinner tonight. He asks him to step away because the guy is all sweaty and clinging to him. The guy explains that everything he's doing is completely legal and accuses Haruto of. A boy and a girl say they shouldn't approach the boy because he's been snooping around in the sewers. The girl asks him to let go and fly into her arms. The boy says he'll probably let her. Haruto Ichinose declares they won't settle for a draw. The boy with the number 12 speaks very well. The guy with the number 10 says they're ahead. The guy with the number 7 says they've managed to get ahead. The guy with the number 4 asks if anyone can react to his passes, and the guy with the number 5 says that even Shori can't. Haruto Ichinose says he can win and he can beat his brother today. He says it's a team game. The man says he didn't want to stand out, but the guy explains, well, how is that possible? Haruto Ichinose announces that it looks like we'll have to start. He then picks up the ball and says, let's get started. The next panel shows a basketball game. He says it's fast. The man shouts to stop the short. He says, huh? The large panel shows a basketball game, with several players actively moving and fighting for the ball. Haruto Ichinose says, what a technique. The man says he never thought Haruto could drive them like that. The other man says Haruto really surprised him. Haruto Ichinose says, could it really be? He says he's starting to feel amused. He wonders if he's yet seen the limits of his opponent's strength. The man laughs. The other two men discuss the opponent's speed and call him a jerk, but also point out that he's one of the fastest in Japan. Haruto Ichinose says he makes this face sometimes, and it's the first time he's seen it. The man explains it's because of his passes. The guy asks what's wrong with him. He says he made such a face. The guy says they're only 2 points behind and that it's a piece of cake to come back. Haruto Ichinose says there's a tight defense on the left, but it'll work on the right. Haruto Ichinose says he's dodged again. Haruto Ichinose yells, come on. He delivers a powerful punch, sending his opponent flying backwards while another player tries to grab his leg. The man and woman look worried. Haruto Ichinose says he's sorry. The man and woman also react tensely to what he said. He says he sees everything. Then the match is announced to be over, and the scoreboard shows 20-28. The guy with the number 10 says he told you so, no chance. The guy with the number 5 says it seemed like they were evenly matched. Haruto Ichinose says he's nearly died of a heart attack 100 times, but today he was super cool. The guy replies that he's poor. Another guy remarks that Haruto Ichinose seems kind, and the man says there's no kindness here. He says he'll get married and asks, are you an idiot? The man explains that his expectations are too high and that he thought he could win more than ever before. The man explains that he's now feeling much more resentful than usual. The guy with glasses and number 4 says these passes are completely incomprehensible and explains that as soon as you get open, the ball flies to you. The guy with number 6 confirms that Haruto Ichinose even passed into the blind spot. Haruto Ichinose is surprised and asks. The guy on the right asks what kind of throw that was. The girl next to him says Haruto is really cool. Shori replies that he can't do that. The guy asks why. The man with the number 5 says yes. Haruto Ichinose explains that he lost. He says he can't believe they lost. The next man says it was their last game. The man with glasses explains that they have to accept the loss. The man on the left asks what to do now. The man on the right says they have to keep practicing. The guy says that winning or losing doesn't matter. And the other guy says that Haruto was cool, and what does that have to do with it? Haruto yells at them not to touch him and demands the bucket of sanitizer back. The man explains to Haruto that he hasn't yet listened to the main point and that, by the sound of, the guy with the number 4 explains that you'll know where you're supposed to be by the sound. The guy with the number 7 throws water from a bucket. The guy with the number 5 and the guy with the number 4 watch what's happening. The guy with the number 8 is shocked, and the guy with the number 4 stands nearby. Haruto Ichinose asks how the basketball game went. The man says his place is in the basketball club and says it was fun. The guy says that with such passes, Shori's strength will increase even more and invites her to join them. The man explains that he means excellent compatibility and asks where the first date will be. He says he doesn't understand why he's here. He expresses dissatisfaction. Haruto Ichinose says he'll join the club and crush his interlocutor. He says a teacher shouldn't talk like that. The girl explains that she can't help her feelings. The boy explains that there's already someone he swore to love for the rest of his life, and if he breaks that vow, his brother will kill him. Haruto Ichinose yells that they'll do without the disgusting dubbing. The man explains that he's not shy, doesn't kill, and asks for love. He says he's only in basic training and wants to play with everyone. The boy asks for an even tighter hug and says his brother doesn't know that. The man expresses disgust. Haruto Ichino says that those in front of him are idiots. A guy with dark hair and glasses asks the group what they're even doing. A man with dark hair holds another guy by the neck from behind, preventing him from moving. A gun fires. He says, "Yuno-cha." A guy reports that the first years haven't seen Haruto Ichino's yet. A man says that Yuno was there, and another man shouts that Yuno is an armed robber and a homicidal maniac, while a third man explains that he doesn't mind being Yuno's shield but crushing her. The guy says that club managers don't usually carry guns and asks if that seems strange, and the man asks her to let him go already. The girl explains that the gun is an airsoft gun, won't kill you, and not to worry, and also says that it definitely leaves holes in the walls. The girl reports that Haruto Ichino said something about participating in practice matches, but he's not at that level yet. Haruto Ichino yells that the guy has never seen him before and can't possibly know anything about his level. He says he doesn't intend to stop the other person and that enthusiasm is a good thing. The other person replies that he'll quickly learn from experience how useless he is now. The guy says he's passing the ball to Haruto and warns him to be careful of his passes. Haruto says he can say whatever he wants. Haruto Ichinose says that he really thinks he'll listen to this and nod his head. Meanwhile, the man tries to take the ball from another guy. A guy says he doesn't understand how Shori stopped him, and another guy asks if he really throws such accurate passes blindly. The man compliments his shot and calls Haruto handsome. The girl says she thinks he's ready to play now. Haruto Ichino. Haruto Ichinose says to Suzu. Haruto Ichinose turns his head. The guy announces that they have the ball and are about to score again, and another guy yells that it's a fast break. He explains that he won't be able to make a single pass right now and that he's a complete self-taught basketball player. The man says to just watch. The guy asks. Haruto Ichinose explains that all the players' movements are quite sweeping, and even if he can't see his comrades, he'll have to bend his body. The man explains this. The woman says he'll definitely pass the ball. She explains that since he can't do anything else, it's easy to predict the actions of someone who has no choice. All you have to do is watch his hands and intercept the ball, easy as pie. The guy throws the ball to the other guy. A voice announces the final round has begun. Haruto Ichinose says this is crap. A guy wearing the number 11 uniform asks if he understood what she meant. The woman explains that he's a complete failure as a player and asks if he's gotten cocky after suddenly discovering his hidden talent. He says he sounds harsh, but he really is useless now. The woman says he didn't seem to be praising her and asks if he really heard her, and also wonders if he's the type to get aroused when he's humiliated. Haruto Ichinose explains that he doesn't care whether he's praised or not, and that he's already gotten used to the insults. The woman. The girl says that you only become stronger when you learn something new. He says that he won't get better if he's praised, or vice versa after being scolded. Haruto Ichinose says his shortcomings are a sign that he still has room to grow, and there's nothing better than zero. The man explains that he decided to listen to her. The girl says she never imagined he was so stupid, and laughs, and the boy exclaims indignantly. A friend. He says that such living creatures don't exist in nature. He explains that he has an IQ of over 30,000 and that he's not stupid. The man says that he really is a moron. He says that he's about 15 years old. The guy says he likes idiots with ambition, but asks not to call him stupid. The man explains that the guy's passes give the team more options. The girl tells the guy not to be so upset. Haruto Ichinose says the guy is truly an idiot and incompetent, good only at passing. The man explains that learning something new means becoming stronger, and this is exactly the case. The girl says that a loser like the man could be the key to their team's victory and asks if he understands what she's getting at. The man, surprised, says, A guy with a bandage on his face asks what that pile of text is and remarks that from a distance, it looks like just black paper. A girl in a cap tells him not to whine, since he himself said he wants to learn something new. She explains that they need to practice the dribbling exercise first. The guy says he sees the girl is as ruthless as ever. The girl explains that she doesn't think he can do everything right away, but if she doesn't get him in shape quickly, they'll have problems. The guy asks if the girl really wants to force him to train like that, and the girl asks if there's any point in being kind. The girl says that she thinks that Haruto Ichinose has already realized that they can't continue to hang like dead weight on Shori. He says that he is right, and the girl says that this boy really can become the one who will unite. Haruto Ichino says that, in the end, he asks if they're the only ones left out of all the first years. The guy asks why everyone's leaving, and the girl explains that they have no backbone and calls them weaklings. He blames them, saying it's all their fault. The man explains that one scatter. Haruto Ichinose says these aren't trash, but trading cards, and asks to look at the holographic card. The man says it's clear, shiny trash. The guy says the doors are about to close and advises them to get out of here. He explains it's simple. The other guy says he's been making some kind of crap again without permission. He yells that it really hurts and asks someone to. Haruto Ichinose tells him to shut up and not come near him, and the man apologizes to Haruto Ichinose. The guy says he has a big frame and it's Harukun's best merch. He says, and looks at the guy, who falls to his knees, dropping the frame. Haruto Ichinose says it's smoke, and the guy asks if it's a fire. Haruto Ichinose and the guy are standing outside, smoke rising around them. He shouts, asking where the fire is coming from. The man tries to stop Haruto, saying he can't do that, and Haruto shouts back. The man asks Haruto not to interfere because it's dangerous, and Haruto explains that he just joined the club and won't allow it. The guy turns to his brother and says that he thinks one of his friends is there. Haruto Ichinose says don't compare me to him and calls him completely nuts. Kurogane Rara says there's no point in comparing her to that barbarian and reveals that her name is Kurogane Rara and she's the most beautiful man in the world. The text explains that Kurogane Rara is a second-year student at Shiranami High School and a member of the basketball club. The guy with the backpack and another guy notice the smoke and say he's back, asking if they know each other. Haruto Ichinose confirms that it's true and says he managed to return from the depths of hell. He explains that the smoke is dry ice, which accentuates his color. He explains that he was simply suspended from school. The guy asks why. He explains that someone broke a vase in the principal's office because they thought it was ugly. The man says that the person is crazy. Haruto Ichinose says he later made a dragon statue out of the shards, to which the man yells that this was completely insane. The man explains that he prepared meticulously to defeat Haruto Ichinose. The third man says he wasn't idle during his suspension. The girl says she'll wear a mask, and he says she's an idiot. Haruto Ichinose says that the man he's talking to isn't capable of understanding beauty, just as he thought he's just a commoner, and that he'll teach him. The man says, ball, ball, ball. Haruto Ichinose regrets that the man can't see how awful he is right now. The girl laughs and says she'll see how long the guy can insult her. The girl gets ready to throw the ball. He's surprised and asks if he's really going to throw it with his eyes closed. The girl explains that the word mistake isn't in her beautiful vocabulary. A woman says that beauty is perfection, because. The woman says they thought it was wonderful. Haruto Ichinose says he thinks he already told Shori he's back from the depths of hell. The woman says she will never forgive him. He looks at her with tension. The man shouts at the basketball players, asking what they are doing. Haruto Ichinose asks who they are with. The guy explains that he and the guys were already getting ready to go home. He says there's no one else here except him, and it's the speed. The man says he got away with it. The woman explains that he didn't even have time to run away and calls him a fool. Haruto Ichinose asks what kind of throw that was and whether the sleeping mask is special. The man explains he doesn't have to tell him anything. Haruto Ichinose says he's stubborn and asks to at least let him wear the mask. The guy says that shot was really cool. The girl explains that Shori can always teach him how to shoot and asks why he's asking her. The girl says she wants to learn how to score like that, even though she's never seen anything. The woman says it's cool and beautiful. The next panel shows a ball hitting a basketball hoop. Haruto Ichinose shouts encouragement and urges action, then says it's not that bad. The girl says, "Bue." The guy says the girl is showing it off, and the girl asks him not to show her such filth, a commoner. The girl explains that neither he nor his brother understands what beauty is, and the guy asks what's wrong with her. Haruto Ichinose says that being beautiful means being perfect, and explains that he makes too many unnecessary movements. He explains that this slows down his movements, making them easy for anyone to read. The man comments that Haruto seems to be constantly trying to show off his strength. He says, what should he do then? And the girl explains that she's laughing and asking him to be calm, then says that she'll bend over him and use it. The girl shouts, "Bon appetit," and throws a rose. Haruto Ichinose invites him to lie down on a bed of roses. The man declines, saying it's full of bugs and dirty. Haruto Ichinose calls it the glory of roses. The woman explains that the exercise involves throwing and catching a ball with one hand, and the man is surprised, asking. The girl asks if he can repeat the throw 100 times, and he laughs and says the ball only touched the pavement with 2 fingers. Then he shouts forward and throws the ball, which flies through the air. The girl explains. Haruto Ichinose says he'll barely reach the ball, then curses. He tries to catch it and exclaims. The girl explains that when catching the ball, you need to be careful and use an open palm to prevent it from bouncing off. Haruto Ichino. The image contains no text or speech, only a picture of a clock on the street. The woman says that at this rate it's 100 times as far as the moon, and Haruto Ichinose screams, "Shit." Haruto Ichinose says, "Damn, it seems simple, but there's too much to keep in mind," and asks if it's rain. The woman suggests Haru continue another time. He is silent. Haruto Ichinose says he doesn't understand how he could go home without Marilyn. The girl says that she needs to get back quickly, otherwise she will lose precious time for skincare. He counts to 15, then to 16, and shouts Sem's name, calling him. Haruto Ichinose says he's doing something wrong. The man asks what he's doing here. Haruto Ichinose explains he's decided to continue. The woman says he wasn't joking and orders him to come here. He says he can't believe it started raining, just when he was about to leave. The man says it's better to wait until the rain subsides a bit. Haruto Ichinose says he couldn't just stop and go home. The man explains that training in such a downpour is amazing. Haruto Ichinose says he's not weak and some rain won't stop him. The man explains that it's not a question of whether he's strong or not. He explains that training is not something to be taken lightly, and warns that an injury can cause you to lose everything. He says he had a feeling that it would only take a little longer for him to realize it. The guy asks about the sound, and the man says he heard it and has very good hearing. Haruto Ichinose explains that the throwing sound was completely different, probably due to the correct spin of the ball. He says that his ball spins completely differently, and that means a lot. He says, "You can think about it later. First, you need to warm up." He says, "Yes, thank you." Haruto Ichinose says he figured out the number of fingers and explains that the fingers were interfering with each other's ability to spin the ball. He says what it means. The man stands silently with his arms crossed. The top panel shows a basketball with the numbers 98 and 99. Haruto Ichinose shouts 100 while throwing the ball up. In the bottom panel, Haruto Ichinose happily says he got it, and the man with the umbrella says, "Oh, you." The woman says she's been stuck here for over an hour and doesn't understand what another 10 minutes are. He says hello. The man explains that he ruined his entire holiday. The woman says, and wishes the man to grow and achieve his goals now. The man says he still has a lot of growing to do. The boy says that if he trains until he achieves his goal, it won't make any difference, and asks what's the big deal. Haruto Ichinose explains that, unlike his brother, the boy is a slow learner. The boy says it would be foolish to give in to his brother just for that reason. He says that they are brothers after all. He says that his brother once said something similar. He asks what? He exclaims that. Haruto Ichino says there's no point in comparing them, because it immediately makes him feel disgusted. The man explains that it was last year before Nationals. Haruto Ichinos asks if they made it to Nationals last year, and then, shocked, says the girl doesn't even know. The girl asks. The woman explains that they made it through but were eliminated in the first round of the Winter Cup, and the result, to put it mildly, wasn't great. The man says he hadn't seen his brother for a long time at the end of the year and didn't really care, so he didn't pay attention. The woman advises Shori not to mention it to avoid problems. The woman says she doesn't forgive him because he betrayed them. Haruto Ichino says he's doing everything he can and asks him not to be so angry. The man yells that the other guys are in bad shape and asks if Haruto wants to continue. Haruto Ichinos. He says that it would be very stupid to lose the match just for this reason. Haruto Ichinose says he doesn't accept the way he treats basketball and that he denies his basketball. He says he didn't really understand what the other person said, and if his brother's basketball is wrong, then what kind of basketball does he want to play? The man says this. The girl says that her basketball. Haruto Ichinose yells at the girl, demanding an explanation. The girl tells him that Haruto Ichinose doesn't know what time it is. Haruto Ichinose angrily replies that it's his phone. He says that if you don't hurry, the dinner will get cold, and asks how they did it. Haruto Ichinose explains what he'll do with the other person's phone and warns them to return within 15 minutes. The girl asks what's going on. Haruto Ichinose explains that he simply added the monitoring feature, and the other person protests that it's a hack. He says it's a dumb piece of shit. The woman says they're so noisy. Haruto Ichinose says it's time to begin. The guy says he won't give up that easily. He says damn. He says don't miss. Haruto Ichino says their Shori is still good, and the guy remarks that today he's even a little too good. Haruto Ichinose announces that he's the winner and scolds the Shori, demanding they do it again. The guy asks why he only does this, and the girl orders him to shut up and knock. He screams in pain as the girl stabs him in the stomach. Haruto Ichino says, "What are you doing, idiot?" and expresses surprise. The girl reports that even with his balance off, he continued to hit the ball. Haruto Ichino yells, "You're asking for a fight." The woman says he seems to be using his fingers better than before and asks if he's been practicing lately. He says, yes, his new secret throw is fantastic. The man explains that it's nothing and that he's still. The girl says the guy's head looks like a chocolate sundae and asks who's the sundae. Haruto Ichinose says this guy really could be the one to unite the crumbling team. The woman says it's clear. The guy reports that they seem to be there. Haruto Ichinose asks who's here. The man explains that Sho-chan is here and says they'll get lost again if they don't keep an eye out, and that their job is simply to scout out the situation. The man also calls the girl cute. He tells her not to be so serious and suggests a good old-fashioned raid. The man stands silently nearby. First, the man declares himself to be free of worries and dark thoughts, full of hope and a burning heart. Then the boy says he will become a star that shines brighter than all. Bottom right, the man explains that you understood correctly, he is Sirius-sama. Haruto Ichino says there's a new addition to the circus and that he's one of the main clowns. A guy with a ringlet hairstyle asks who these guys are and if they're from Akamatsu High. The man with glasses explains that he knows nothing, Nanahosh. He says that he is not some kind of slug to hide in corners and reminds that the interlocutor came to spy. Haruto Ichinos says he doesn't want to leave behind a debt from last year and offers to play once, promising a framed autograph if he wins. The man warns him not to do it so suddenly, but Haruto Ichinose reassures him that he hasn't come empty-handed. Haruto Ichinose remarks, he says, okay, let's play because they're the strongest in the prefecture. The man on the left listens. Haruto Ichino says that since they're going to have to beat their opponents anyway, they'll deal with it now. A man with a facial tattoo reports that someone in the back row is struggling to contain themselves. A guy with spiky hair says he likes it and notes that Haruto. The guy with glasses says, that's right, Sho-chan. He says he can't help himself and that when he thinks about it, he'll be able to play basketball with Sho. Haruto Ichino says it gives him goosebumps. The boy demands to be called Sirius-sama and expresses irritation, and the man says to get ready for a game, not knowing what to do with them. The girl explains that they're the best in the prefecture and asks if there's a more suitable one. He says he's here. The man tells the brainless guy to stand. Haruto Ichinose asks what's wrong, if there's any complaint. The man calls him an idiot and says he was all talk about winning, but why did he go to his brother? Haruto Ichinose says he has a complaint and says Harukun has never been in. The guy says that he already said that he would be the one to defeat his interlocutor. He says that the interlocutor will then bow to him 10,000 times. The guy says he has a feeling he's the main enemy here, and the other guy says he's practically glowing. Haruto Ichino says the other guy is cute when he's so fired up. Haruto Ichinose asks him to take off that stupid uniform and says the other guy isn't even that cool right now. He says that he makes good use of his interlocutor. Shiranami Ichinose, Shori, says everyone is ready. Haruto Ichinose smiles and confirms that they are ready. Koguma Tsukiteru looks confused. Inukai Akamaru is surprised. Nanahoshi Tento smiles and confirms that they are ready. Sakisaka Suzu looks. The guy announces that the game is about to begin. The players jump to grab the ball. The guy says the score is probably 190. The man says their Yakumo is over 180 and huge. Haruto Ichinos dribbles the ball. He says they will score their first points. He responds with a question. He dribbles the ball, and another player tries to take it away. The boy covers his ears with his hands and screams tensely, and Haruto Ichinose screams back. He says that he knew Sho-chan would break through. He shouts to come over. He notices that Sho-chan broke through and calls him a dwarf. He orders not to allow this. The guy says it's a double clutch. The man says it's high and has the perfect trajectory for a block, but Haruto Ichinos calls that naive. Haruto Ichinos lands a powerful punch. The guy asks if it's his other hand. He says it's Nanahoshi Tento, the ace of the royal, Akamaru, one of the samurai of the Japanese high school team. Haruto Ichinos reveals that he is the only person in the prefecture who is on par with Shori. Haruto Ichinos then asks what the only one means. He says they can't give in to him because he's been shining so brightly from the start. He tells Kagero that he's played him beautifully. Kagero apologizes and says he's gotten complacent. He declares that they'll shine even brighter. Haruto Ichinose says to go and destroy them. A guy throws a ball into a basket from above. A man screams in surprise. A guy looks at the ball flying into the basket. Haruto Ichino says what it is. The guy says it's cool and neither of them is giving up. The caption tells of a battle between two samurai. The girl says that these two are truly exceptional, but they're not actually running the match, and he demands to know why all the attention is on them. The man says he's keeping a close eye on the first year from Akamatsu. The man notes that he's quite strong. The second man explains. Haruto Ichinose says it sounded pretty rude and like he predicted everything except his speed. The man reports that this is exactly it. He says he accelerates well, but competing with him in speed is not the best idea. Haruto Ichino says it's actually a good idea if they're here. The man says he's trying to distract him and won't get caught that easily. The guy says he won't let the pass be passed. The man and the guy report how quickly he closed it. Haruto Ichino says he expected it too. The man yells that he'll take the ball. The man says he's standing right under the hoop and asks if he can score. Haruto Ichino's orders him to move aside. The guy says the defense shouldn't relax just because the opponent is a rookie and orders them to close him down properly. The man explains that it's not their fault now because he's been given an opening from the outside. The girl explains that the guy focused the defense's attention on Nanahoshi and intentionally created empty spaces. Haruto Ichinose reports that he's timing his passes perfectly and, simply put, he has it all figured out. Number 4 says his passes are shining today and asks what Haruto means by shining. He says he's just doing his job, and the other guy says, He says he thinks the other guy is a little carried away. The guy says it's rare to see him like this, and another guy asks if Shori's brother's pass surprised him. Haruto Ichino's explains that such an outcome is impossible to predict, but he did hit the free player by pure chance. Haruto Ichino's says that even if it was pure chance, he's for it. He says he's actually being nice today. The guy laughs and says, "Oh, come on." He yells at how dare he score before him and hits another player. A man off to the side yells in surprise. Haruto Ichinose says he scored points and notes his excellent shot, adding that he would have scored under the hoop without protection. The man says the guy is also no slouch with his pass. The guy explains that he only just received the ball and was already under the hoop. He says it's all bullshit and he's just lucky he can give out better passes. The man reports to TC. Haruto Ichino says great. Haruto Ichinose yells something. The man with the number 10 speaks here. The girl says that the guy is also not bad with his passes and he's quite strong. He says this is their chance and orders them to surround the opponent. The man with the ball is indignant and asks if he is serious. He shouts, "Fuck you," and tries to take the ball away. The man with the ball makes a sound of irritation and attempts to. The guy yells, "Whoa," and delivers a powerful punch. The man reacts by saying that it's power and adds shit. Haruto Ichino says you have to use your head when passing and asks what kind of pass it was. Number 5 explains that since he scored, it's okay. Number 10 says it wasn't a pass. He says that if all that matters is hitting the target, then you should play dodgeball. The man asks what? He explains that passing isn't about showing strength. It's not a selfish thing, but something they have in common. Haruto Ichino says, what unites? He says he didn't do a good job defending and asks for forgiveness, and Yakumo explains that it's not his fault and that he should do a better job covering Haruto. The scoreboard shows the difference is now 8 points. Haruto Ichino says he's sorry. A man and a woman stand nearby, looking in Haruto's direction. Haruto Ichinose walks along, clutching a kitten. The woman says it seems there's nothing he can't do. The girl says Shori-kun is such a good guy and can do everything. The man explains what needs to be done first. The man says that he expects Shori to come first in the next test and says that it was expected of him. The guy says he's counting on his interlocutor for the next match. Haruto Ichino says that with him on the team, victory in the tournament is a given. The man runs toward the ball. He says he believes in Shori. Haruto Ichino says he can do it. The guy reports that Sho-chan is attacking and orders him to get ready. He tells him to stop and finally grabs the guy by the shoulder. The guy with the number 10 says A. The man with the number 11 says pod. The man with the number 8 and the man with the number 5 are silent. The man in the cap says, damn. On the sports field, a man yells at Raira to calm down and asks him what he's doing, explaining that he can't win alone and that the nationals haven't taught him anything. The man grabs Haruto Ichinose by the shoulder and tells him what he wants to say. Haruto Ichinose replies that together they will win. The guy yells at Raira to stop and calls him a bastard. He explains that he's not saying this to humiliate anyone and doesn't understand why they're preventing him from attacking someone who can score. He says that he's always focused on winning and does everything he can to achieve it because the guy with the number 4 says he's not going to give up, and the guy with the number 1 says they have to win. The guy with the number 8 explains they have a chance, and the guy with the number 5 says they need to focus on the game. The guy asks what's going on. Haruto Ichinose says it's starting to piss him off and then says something's wrong. The girl says she's denying him basketball. The woman says the blue team has the ball and orders them to start. The guy reports that a monster is coming towards them. He asks if it ends up attacking alone again, to which the guy with the number 4 tells him to watch out. The guy with the number 5 yells for him to stop. He says he'll stop it. The guy with the number. Haruto Ichinos tells him to stay out of the way. Number 5 replies that he knows without Haruto. Number 10 tells him to shut up and look at Haruto. Number 7 dribbles, and 3 players, numbers 5, 7, and 10, are ready. The guy with the ball suddenly changes direction. He says here, and the other guy warns that if he breaks like that, it will be bad. Haruto Ichino says he thought so. The man says it's his chance and asks if his opponent stumbled while dribbling. He reports that he got past all 3 of them and thus allowed his opponent to score. He explains that he will continue to do this as long as he wins. The guy announces that this team is winning too. Haruto Ichinose says everything is fine and that he's doing well. The man calls Haruto a jerk and explains that even if he tries so hard, he still won't be able to take the ball from him. The guy with the number 5 demands silence and says that Haruto. He says he thought about it a bit too, and the other guy explains that at least he thinks before he does something. He says his timing was perfect, and the guy with number 10 says that it was precisely because the other guy just jumped out. The boy says he's never seen Kaguru so talkative and is a little shocked. The girl asks them to get along. The man explains that Haruto Ichinose relies on his hearing, so it may seem like he's not thinking. Haruto Ichino says that hearing won't help him steal the ball. He says no, and the man says he's right about that. Haruto Ichino says left. Haruto Ichino says top. Haruto Ichino says damn. The guy says it was a feint again. He says the best defense is to surround him from several sides. Haruto Ichino says that this guy. The man says that he will stop him himself and offers to take an autograph, but the guy refuses and says that he will manage. He says that, to be honest, it's crazy. He's not so simple that he can be stopped alone, but still. The man says that he likes people whose soul burns as brightly as his. In the upper right corner, a man points to the score of 10,000 and the time is 4012. In the right center, Haruto Ichinosi calls out a rebound. In the left center, a group of fans are talking about a rebound. In the upper left corner, player number 7 is jumping to shoot the ball, and player. He reports that he knows the sound of his interlocutor running well. Haruto Ichinose says the sound of your foot hitting the ground is heard when you accelerate, and the rhythm of your steps becomes faster than others. Haruto Ichinose says he hates you. In the first frame, the man says he hates. In the second frame, he says he hates. In the third frame, he says he hates. The guy says he hates it with all his heart. Haruto Ichinose says he's heard it so many times his ears hurt. The guy says, listen. He says, listen and don't miss that sound. The guy on the right says, Haruto Ichinose announces that he will not give up. Man number 5 shouts that he will not allow this. Several spectators watch the scene with tense expressions. He tells him to stop and calls out to Veal, warning him not to lose his cool. The man explains that he can't relax just because he's figured out one trick. The guy with the ball reproaches him, and he notices another turn. Haruto Ichino says he stopped. Haruto Ichinose raises his arms, preparing to throw. He says, I'm sorry. Man number 5 yells and tries to stop Haruto from throwing. Man number 4 says, fuck you. He's surprised and says, eh? Haruto Ichinose shouts for Shori and calls out to him, performing a handspring. Number 10 announces that, thanks to Haruto, Shori has become a masterpiece of modern art. Number 4 and number 10 discuss how he's truly gotten better. The girl says the guy is great for not falling for that trick. He explains it wasn't a trick, he was just listening to the sound of his footsteps. The girl says he was concentrating too much and ended up closing his eyes, and yet he still hasn't risen from the bottom. Haruto Ichino says that in the end, his opponent still easily overtook him. The girl reports that she was able to stop him, but only by a whole step, and considers that a good result for a start. The guy with the number 10 says the girl is right, and he beat everyone in the end anyway. He says it has nothing to do with it, and demands that they shut up because the guy with the number 10 has never stopped Haruto. The girl with the cap explains that the girl informs that Haruto is a replacement, Haruto Ichinose says in amazement. The boy says that he's finally on the same team as Haru-kun and exclaims, oh my god. Then the boy calls Haru-kun to jump into his brother's arms. Haruto Ichinose asks if he can end the solo picket and says there are no substitutes. A man with a megaphone announces their resolute opposition, demands the death of the parasites, and orders an attack. Yuno explains that if Shori and Haruta are on the same team, teamwork will be essential. The girl says that there are things that they can only understand by butting heads, and adds that. The guy reports to Shori. The man runs with the ball. The man yells at Haruto. Haruto says there's no fucking way. Haruto Ichinose announces that he is now on the same side as the other man. The man shouts that Haruto-kun. The guy with the ball says that if you give him the ball, no one will pass it, and the girl explains that it's a run, you idiot. He says that now they have a civil war, and the guy with number 7 calls them idiots. He calls The guy reports an alley. Oop. The man explains that they're quickly making up for it, and perhaps they shouldn't have swapped the captain and Haruto. Haruto Ichinos asks them to just rely on their brother for now, but the guy says there's no way he'll do that. The guy says that Haru-kun isn't up to the level of this match yet. He says he won't know until he tries. The man explains that it's enough, troglodyte brothers. The guy warns that it's dangerous, and he yells at him to get off. Haruto Ichino says that all his patience has snapped and calls the uneducable Gopnik brothers brainless freaks and then uses the word bastards. He explains that trying to tell them something is like throwing roses at a wall, and that it's like throwing roses before swine. Then he makes a gah sound. The man says that since Rera is acting like this, he will do whatever he wants too. The other men ask Rera to wait. The guy says that's it, let's go home already. The man explains that they thought the entire Shiranami High team was hanging around Shuri, but in reality, they don't have a team at all. They simply can't do otherwise, not that they want to. The man says there's no one here who can compare. Haruto Ichino says everyone else is simply not up to par, and even if they meet them at the prefectural competition, they're no match, and there was no point in scouting them. Yuno says that at this rate, their team will continue to fall apart. The girl says that if he wants, she can make sure that he doesn't die. The girl addresses the boy with the number 5, calling him Kayama-senpai. Kayama-senpai responds with a question. Haruto Ichinose suddenly appears on the right and says that the balls should be passed to him from now on, causing Kayama-senpai to be surprised. He says that, as he thought, they simply need his strength, and he will replace Haruto, asking for forgiveness. The man says that he thinks it's still a bit early for Haruto. The guy assures Haruto Ichinose to believe in him, explaining that. The guy says that even though she told him to give the balls to Haruto, the girl yells for the vice-captain. Haruto Ichinose calls out to Shelleg, Ai's senpai. The guy yells out to Sei-kun. The guy says, him, give it to him. The man says it looks like nothing good will come of it. The man says, to hell with it, whatever happens. He says, fine. Haruto Ichinose says that he is you, and Haruto Ichinose expresses disdain. He says he'll crush them going forward. The man yells for him to stop. The guy with number 7 tells him to wait. The guy with number 10 explains that this guy will never score. Haruto Ichinose says there's only one thing to be careful of. The guy yells at Haruto Ichinose. Haruto Ichinose says he won't allow it. The other guy exclaims, ah! He says, it's too high, barbarian. The man with the number 11 tries to throw the ball into the basket, and he raises his hand to block the shot. The other players watch what's happening. Haruto Ichinose says he did the right thing when he passed the ball to her. The guy says they made it, and 2 men shout about a 3-point shot. He tells them to keep going. The guy asks the girl if she's going to score herself, to which she replies that everything is going according to plan and calls him a fool. Haruto Ichino says that because he passes blindly, he can't tell when a pass is coming, and adds that this applies to his team as well. Then Haruto Ichinose explains what to do then. The image shows a player with the ball making a pass, and 2 opponents trying to follow suit. The woman says, remember, barbarian. He asks how you know when he'll pass the ball. The woman says the word impossible simply doesn't exist in her dictionary. The guy suggests starting a game. The man calls him brother, and Haruto Ichinose says that he has a name and he is not anyone's brother. The guy says he says that. The man says, oh. The man says, damn. The man and the man say it was close. Haruto Ichinose says it was a quick break and orders them to turn back. The man says it was obvious it wouldn't work, and Haruto Ichinose says he thought it would, but that's crap. He says that a pass they can't receive isn't a pass, and reassures them that he'll show them how it should be done. A man with a ball passes the ball, and 2 opponents try to intercept it. A woman shouts that they need to cover the player with the ball. Haruto Ichino says the difference in attitude is too obvious, and they could at least raise their voice a little. The man says it was a good shot. Haruto Ichinose explains that his ability to control the game is definitely one of the best in the country. The man says the passes come exactly when they're needed, and the woman tells him to ignore him and let him say whatever he wants, but he calls him a freak. The boy says he can't figure out the timing of the passes, and thinks the one was aimed at Shori. The girl explains that a barbarian like him would never learn to make such beautiful passes. Haruto Ichinose yells at the boy to decide whether he's supporting him or humiliating him. The girl. The woman says that this is what she thinks every time, and that the pass is addressed to her. Haruto Ichino says the other guy is right and asks why he assumed the pass wasn't his, but thought Shori would score. He explains that he simply wanted to leave everything in the hands of someone better than him. He says he doesn't understand, and the other man asks Haruto for forgiveness. Haruto Ichinose says he'll definitely catch the ball next time. He asks Glasses Senpai to rely on him. The ball goes into the basket. The guy says they missed and talks about rebounding the ball. He says great, and that now it's their turn. He explains that if he can't understand the timing, then you always need to be ready for a pass. He curses and calls the other player a jerk. The guy says he won't let him in. Haruto Ichino says he won't go. The man in glasses explains it's a trick. The girl expresses surprise. The guy yells at him not to pass the ball to anyone and to think only about himself. He says he won't pass the ball. The man calls him over, but he refuses and calls the man a barbarian. The guy is surprised, and the guy with glasses says it was a great shot and now the difference is only 8 points. Then he explains that it was dangerous because he swung too wide. The man in the number 8 shirt says it was a great pass, turning to Haruto. Haruto reports that that pass was just. Haruto Ichinos explains that, on the other hand, it is the presence of people who want to score the most that ultimately brings the team points, and that his pass itself chooses who will receive it, and if you are not an egoist who wants to receive the ball, you will never react. Haruto says he's not able to time his passes perfectly, keeping an eye on the situation on the court, but his passes awaken his teammates, giving them the opportunity to score. The man shouts that it's a rally pass. The man in the number 7 makes a sound of irritation. The man in the number 5 CRSK. The woman says they still have a whole bunch of problems. Haruto Ichinose tells them to shut up, or next time they'll take passes face first. The guy with glasses yells, "It's him, it's him." The girl explains that Haruto Ichinose should have passed the pass to her and calls him a moron. He says that he and Senpai haven't faded in comparison. He notices that everyone around him has suddenly started to glow. Sirius says that he's not a fool and hasn't forgotten who he is. Sirius sighs and turns to Siri. Haruto Ichinos says that when everyone around him shines, it just lights the fire in his soul even brighter. The man says they're only just now deciding to do this and that it's a bit late, and Haruto Ichinos explains that it's like an epiphany has dawned on him. He says they only have a minute left and says, "What the hell?" The boy announces that there are 50 seconds left, and the man says the difference is only 2 points. On the court, player number 5 is dribbling the ball, and player number 7 is preparing to defend. Haruto Ichinos tells them to stay up front and keep the ball away from their little brother. The man says things are bad, explaining that they're so close to them that Haruto can't get the ball. The girl says they've moved forward and focused the defense's attention on Haruto, and then says, "Ah, right?" The woman says it's time to finish the workout. He says it's time to leave. Haruto Ichino says he won't let him do anything else. The man replies, "Just try it, bastard." Haruto Ichino says he'll get around it in no time. The guy wearing number 7 throws the ball and says it's a three-pointer. The man and the guy next to him say that if he makes it, they'll win. He screams in shock. The girl explains that it means Shori will be able to move more easily. Haruto Ichinos says we need to act so quickly. On the basketball court, Haruto Ichinos jumps and tries to block another player's shot. The guy announces that the ball is close, saying they need a rebound. The top panel shows the sound of the ball being hit. In the middle panel, the players are trying to catch the ball near the basket. The guy says he just jumped for a block and asks if he's joking. The girl says it's explosive power. A guy says 2 points decide everything here. Another guy demands he stop. A third guy orders him to stop. Haruto Ichinozi announces a counterattack and shouts, "Let's go." Player number 4 says, "Back, back." Haruto Ichinozi explains that he prefers this move. 2. He says that the small lights only feed the enormous radiance that blinds the eyes, and because of this, you don't even understand whether you are glowing at all or not. Haruto Ichino says that all that remains is to stare in amazement at the blinding light before him. The man announces that he has just proven that he shines brighter than anyone else. The guy immediately recalls the prefectural competition finals last year. The man says it's the other way around, reporting that he suddenly got so much stronger. Haruto Ichinos reveals that it wasn't Akamatsu and Shiranami who fought back then, but Nanahoshi and Ichinose, and explains that it was a clash of 2 strong egos. He says that compared to that game, he was even too calm now, and that perhaps you wouldn't be able to tell from him this year. Haruto Ichinose explains that it's hard to find a more violent player than Nanahoshi, and states that when Nanahoshi gets into a frenzy, even 5 players can't handle him. The guy with number 6 says the door is broken and asks what they should do now. The guy with number 8 explains that if they find out they broke the ring at another school, they'll be in trouble later. The guy with number 4 tells the guy with number 11 that he has a star nose, and Haruto Ichino says the faces need to be simpler, then suggests continuing on another platform. The man with the number 8 looks ahead silently, the man with the number 5 and the woman with the number 6 stand nearby. The guy with the number 11 rubs the back of his head. The guy with the number 7. The guy says the match isn't over yet, so there's only one thing left to do. The man says that if they try hard, they'll definitely hold them off. The man explains that Haruto, how are they with him? He says they need to score 2 goals in the remaining 30 seconds. The man says that. It is reported that there are 25 seconds left. The guy says there's no time. Haruto Ichinose says scoring twice in 25 seconds sounds difficult, but they have no choice. He reports that Haruto is being picked on again. The man says it's time, and the man with the ball calls Seikun. The guy with the ball says we need to break through. Haruto Ichino says the score is 30-26. He says Shochan should come over. A man with a ball is playing against another player. The scoreboard shows 0-1-17. Haruto Ichino says he's throwing. Haruto Ichinose throws the ball. Haruto Ichinose defends against 2 opponents. The man says there are 13 seconds left. The man and the boy say they're giving. He says, "This is the end for you." The guy tries to throw the ball into the basket, and the man tries to block it. The girl says, "Can it really get to you?" The man shouts, "Shori!" Haruto Ichinose shouts, "Brother." The man thanks her. The man says he fell for it. A guy is trying to throw a ball into the basket, and a man is trying to stop him. He says there are 11 seconds left. The girl reports that the ball went into the basket. Man number 5 and man number 7 express surprise. Haruto Ichinose says it was unexpected. The guy says the ball is in the basket, and he says there's 1 free throw. Haruto Ichinose says the score is 30-26. The man says the score is E2-10. The woman speaks perfectly. He informs them that they have a chance and they can win. He explains that for a foul during the shot, free throws are awarded. If it was a 3-pointer, 3 throws, otherwise 2, and if the thrown ball pops. The guy says there will be a 3-point difference, then they'll defend. The girl says he's an idiot and asks what he's planning for 10 seconds. The woman says Shori will miss on purpose and they need to win the rebound. There are no other options. Haruto Ichinose explains that if they can't, they won't win. The man asks if they can get the ball back from the starhead, and Haruto Ichinose calls that question. The guy with the number 7 says that if he supports him, they will definitely succeed, and he asks what exactly. He says that the guy with the number 7 must choose between pickup or death, and asks if he knows what support is. The guy says to shut up and he'll handle it himself, and the other guy should just die already, and also demands to remember to hug and shout, "I believe in you." The man explains that Nanahoshi is above 190, and Shori is below 100, and it would seem that who has the advantage here? The man announces that everything is. The guy says that at first he thought that since Shori was in trouble, he would be of no use at all, no matter how hard he tried, and that they would never win. Haruto Ichino says that he will try his best to stop Nanakoshi, and even if there is no chance of winning, he must give it his all. He says he leaves the choice to his interlocutor, but he doesn't know if he can stop him at all. The man says that attempting to do so is all he can do right now. Haruto Ichino says he's always put everything on Shori and apologizes, but he won't rely on him anymore. Haruto Ichino then says he'll put his faith in Shori. The woman says that no matter how high their dwarf jumps, there is no chance of winning if Nanahoshi is left unattended, and that it is a shame to give up the lead role again, but the opponents have 2 giants on their team, so they will have to. He asks who is the dwarf here. The girl says that she won't ask Haruto Ichinose if he misses this chance. A guy with glasses shouts that there's a rebound. A man with a tattoo on his face says the same thing. A guy with short blonde hair and a girl look at the situation. The guy with short blonde hair watches what's happening. The scoreboard reads 28-30. Haruto Ichino says this guy is trying to stop him from getting a rebound, calling it interesting. The man yells at Saria to jump. The man throws the ball into the basket. He says he's being pushed past, and another man shouts for attention. The man tries to move forward, colliding with Haruto. Haruto Ichino says that if he doesn't score, he'll lose. Haruto Ichinose explains that this is his last chance. The guy with glasses says things are bad. The girl confirms it's the end. He shouts Kagero's name. The time on the board reads 0:09. He says he knows. Haruto Ichinose says that if he can't score, he'll lose. He then states that he can't afford to lose. He says it's not just a blow, but a blow that can break a bone. Haruto Ichinose says something strange is happening and expresses surprise. The other boys are also shocked. Haruto Ichinose shouts out, "What's going on?" The scoreboard says there are 5 seconds left. He runs with the ball, and another player yells, "Haruto-kun." He yells, "Close the pass." The man with the ball tells Haruto that the pass is here. Haruto Ichino says he won't pass the ball on his shift. The man says he cut off the pass and has 3 seconds left. The man explains it's easy, you just have to pass. The guy asks why. The man asks what's wrong. The girl says she needs to convince them he's always passing, and then they'll start trying to close him down, at which point a shot window will appear. He says a shot window will appear. Several guys yell in surprise, asking what? Haruto Ichino says he's been waiting for this moment his whole life. Then he jumps and throws the ball. The guy announces that there are 10 seconds left in the game. Then the ball goes into the basket. Haruto Ichino says that, "Oi, a guy with number 4 and a guy with number 7 are watching a guy with number 1 shoot a ball. A guy with number 10 and a girl with number 6 are watching the game. A guy with number 13 is standing on the court. A man in a t-shirt with fire and 2 guys." Haruto Ichino says he's guilty and makes a sound like he's mumbling. The man in the kimono stands motionless with a cigarette in his mouth. Haruto Ichinose hangs from the basketball hoop as if suspended. He says sorry and Haru-kun informs that the match is over.